Shane, Jason?
So this has been a progressive thing for us, and it started in the very first years um, because of budget. We were unable to do much, so it was me by myself basically, and I just started um, with simple things such as door knocking and I bought some bus benches to brand the area. I did a lot of flyering and canvassing on a regimen basis, a lot of door knocking to follow up with that on a regimen basis. And it slowly progressed into much more, which would include direct mail marketing. And now, primarily, it's community based involvement and advertising is in conjunction with that. It's more expensive now, but we can afford more now.
I would say we've relied a lot more heavily on print advertising now, whether that be newspapers, just listed, just sold cards. Okay. I would say we've also relied a lot heavier on printed materials. And it's a lot of branding. Villager ads, the local newspaper, printed pieces being mailed, just listed, just sold cards, along with, as Shane said, a lot of community events and branding that way. Not only doing community events where we're at festivals, things like that, but also branded events like shred events and food drives to show we're giving back to the community who is taking care of us.
So to be specific, nowadays what we do is we do the simple cost stuff, canvassing and door knocking. We do geographic social media. We sponsor those sports events in the local schools. We also attend in the small little park-based festivals in the neighborhoods. We sponsor philanthropic things such as the shred event and food drives, and that's what we do.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. And do you guys distinguish between canvassing and door knocking?
Very much so.
What's the difference? How does that look different, those two activities?
Canvassing is, again, this has evolved over the years. So when I was, and I like to talk about the evolution because I know there's single agents out there and then there are teams out there, but as a single agent, I would canvass, my goal would be to canvass 1,000 houses and then door knock those houses. So I would oftentimes canvass 100 and basically drop off a flyer saying who I was, branding myself, and that I was going to be coming by to introduce myself. And then I would do that with those 100, and then I would drop the next 100 and then door knock those. Now it's different. We do both, a kind of a combination of canvassing a whole area all in one day because we have 10 agents on the team who we all participate in that as a group, myself and Jason included, and we'll go out and canvass. Now, as far as door knocking goes, we pivoted to where our agents create their own mini farms inside the big farms, and they do regimen door knocking pre-COVID. Yeah, but it's reinforced. Their door knocking is reinforced because we've been branding, we canvass, we sponsor, we do philanthropic work, and then they go in and door knock, and they're more easily recognized because of the back end support that the team does.
Yeah, makes sense. I love that. So essentially, you'd canvass by just going to a house, putting a flyer in the door or on the door handle, and then maybe the next week, your agent would go to their specific small farm area and knock those doors.
Correct.
Is that correct? Yep, got it. Perfect.
In a perfect world, that is correct, yes.
Okay, got it. Yes, things don't always work out exactly how we plan, but
I think just the regimen drops of the flyers or the door hangers that we produce, where it's very regimen, where we do it without fail, usually a minimum of once a month in each of our farm areas.
Got it. So that you would be once a month where you're canvassing and then door knocking. I mean, that's the ultimate goal.
That's the ultimate goal. But if door knocking is not able to happen or doesn't happen, the canvassing always happens.
Got it. Does the canvassing double then, or just stays the same?
Canvassing is always going to be more because it's quicker.
Yep.
Our team can get 1,000 flyers out in 1 hour, where that's impossible to do with door knocking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect.
The key, Matt, though, too, is canvassing is more about brand recognition, if you will.
Yes.
If you just choose to go canvass a neighborhood over and over and over, the likelihood of pulling business quickly from that farm is not very good. Where if you canvass in conjunction with door knocking and having that face-to-face meaningful conversation, that's gonna quadruple your opportunity of getting business out of that. You can't solely rely on canvassing.
Well, and more so, it's okay if you're canvassing and door knocking, and then if you get a listing in that area, to canvass and door knock again in conjunction, just in that little hyper local spot as well. So you'll get a lot of people who will push back and say, you leave too much crap on my doorstep, please stop doing that, I'm not interested in receiving your information. And that's fine, you can do that. You can receive those, but still continue to keep doing what you're doing. I mean, we do try to take people off of our list if they really get upset with it, but overall, you can't let 1 or 2 phone calls
Derail.
just derail your progress of what your plan is.
Yep.
Yeah. And I would just want to say thank you very much for, again, distinguishing. That's why I asked the question between what those are. If you just go and canvas, that's probably not going to get you where you want to be.
You would have to do it regimentally for 2 to 4 years to get to where you would want to be, where if you do other things such as door knocking and sponsorship and whatnot, you can accomplish it much, much quicker, 6 months.
Yep. Gotcha. Thank you both for sharing that. Michelle, what about you? Is door knocking part of your, or was it at some point part of your process?
Always been. Especially when we started, we would door knock. We did a basically I'm your neighbor campaign. And so we would just always make sure that people knew we were part of the neighborhood, and we knew the neighborhood better than anybody else. And then we also did sports schedules twice a year by door knocking, and obviously canvassing. If they weren't home, we would drop them. But it was always about door knocking. Along with, we did food drives where we door knock our food tribes. So we actually door knock to give them the bag and tell them when we'll be picking up on 2 to 3 days later, and then we come back and we do the pickup. But we always door knock the food drive because there's nothing better. People respond so well to you door knocking for the food drive, because we're like, we're just here for the food. We're doing a food drive, and people would always start talking to us. And then of course, then you go into, oh, by the way, do you know of anyone who's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate that I could talk to in the neighborhood? So it was an easy transition for that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I've loved that. I've done that myself, food drive like that. And the cool thing is, as you know, now you get 2 touches. You get 2 separate times to communicate with those folks,
Right.
While you're doing, while you're helping others that need food and things like that. So
Right.
that's
And
awesome.
Matt, I would argue that you could have more touches than that, because if you door knock the door bag and then pick up the bag and then send a thank you note,
Yep.
Yes.
maybe with a photograph of all the
Right.
food you had gathered,
Ooh,
you
I
have
like that.
more
Yeah.
touches. Michelle, are you guys currently door knocking in your farm with COVID?
No, not really. We've been really careful with COVID. It's just one of those things that there's so many people who are still really very concerned. So we are not door knocking like we were before.
Have you seen that affect your business to some degree?
Not as much, because we branded ourselves so well in so many other ways. We're actually continuing to stay. Typically every year we do about 20 to 30 deals within our farm. and we're seeing the same note as of right now.
Did you do anything to supplement the lack of door knocking this past spring and summer in order to replace that effort?
Yeah, we did more of the like sending out mailers, things like that, to the farm area, just because we couldn't go to their doors.
Right.
Or we would canvas some different things, because we did do some additional like food drive type things that were kind of like, no touch type food drive things that we would just bring up them, and then school supplies, giving to the school lunch type situation, because we had to supplement some school lunches, so we did a lot of that kind of thing.
Well, sorry, Matt, I'm just gonna take the meeting over.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt like. You're doing a great job. So
I do what I do.
I'm glad you brought that up though, because that's one of the questions I had is what have you guys done differently or had to do differently out of necessity of our situation that you didn't do pre-COVID? Or like you just kind of gave a rundown of what you've been doing, Michelle. What about you guys? What have you done differently?
Honestly, we started incorporating a food drive through COVID here, and the response has been so phenomenal. And so, I mean, it's just been so good that that's what we did. And we're doing a second food drive as we speak.
Well, and what I would say we did is we turned the one thing we were hearing from Gary Keller over and over, even with our clients, is be doing wellness calls.
Yes.
And we struggled because our team does do a lot of canvassing and door knocking. How could we transition that and still be out in front of the community, but not be asking for business?
Yeah.
It just made sense. The food drive, we did 4 weeks for Ronald McDonald House, 4 weeks for Keystone. We're now back on Ronald McDonald House, and even coming up in October, we're going to start doing a coat drive. So it's finding ways to show we care about our community, as well as making touches. And what as Shane alluded to, we're having people who are setting up listing appointments with us just because of our giving back. I signed on a almost $500,000 listing that's going on next week directly from the food drive.
Yeah, I would say that we've probably seen more listings come in this summer for philanthropic activities that we've been doing than we've ever seen. And people mention that because we always try to, find out where the business is coming from. Very similar to the food drive, we are going to, like Jason said, do a coat drive, and it is going to be a situation where we drop off our pamphlet explaining what we're doing along with a larger bag, because we've been giving small grocery bags, so we're going to drop off a larger bag for people to, if they want to donate a coat, put on their doorstep, and then they know the date that we're going to come and pick it up. So I think the philanthropic marketing done right can be very effective.
And the other nice thing about that is it truly is free, almost free. We're partnering with local grocery stores. We did a neighborhood grocery store. We used Kowalski's as well for donation of bags.
Okay.
So it's really not costing us anything. And right now, the other thing that is being preached is cut costs, cut costs, cut costs. So finding different ways to get our brand and our name out there free is huge.
I will say we did also, though, increase our level of just listed and just sold cards to kind of make up for some of the lack of door knocking efforts. So we did invest in that more so for the team.
Okay, gotcha. And are you, this is a question for everyone, are you guys back out door knocking now?
We
No.
Okay.
Maybe I don't believe that anyone on the team has started that.
Okay, gotcha. I was just curious. I do have agents in my program that are door knocking. They're just following CDC procedures and wearing a mask and the rest of it. So,
Matt, are you hearing about any pushback on door knocking?
No. In fact, I don't know if Andrew Beck is on here right now or not, but Andrew Beck has been, that's his primary lead gen activity. And he's knocked on, I think, about 2,300 doors in the past 8 or 9 weeks, and he's talked to maybe 700-ish people, maybe 800, and very little, a handful of pushback, but very little. And he's primarily in Midway-ish area. So that's what I've been hearing. He's probably the one that is most focused on door knocking itself. So he's a great gauge or indicator as to what the public is feeling now. So
Honestly, I've been watching his efforts, and he reminds me a lot of how I was with the door knocking when I first started, like 19 years ago. He's very
right. And that actually kind of leads into my next question, which is for an agent or agents that haven't door knocked or haven't even tried to think about creating a farm, what would you say? I mean, I think the question is sort of obvious, the answer is, but what would you say is the most cost-effective way to start that process, right?
Door knocking.
Yep.
Take a business card, which you have to buy anyway, and go knock on doors. It's free.
And just introduce yourself, that kind of thing.
There's
Right.
no reason why you shouldn't be doing it if you're in real estate. Obviously, you have to be sensitive to the times of COVID. If and if you're going to go out and door knock, you're going to have to. I mean, anytime you're door knocking, you're going to get pushback to some level. And if you're going to do it during this time, you have to just go ahead and take it with a grain of salt and accept that you may have a higher level of pushback, but don't quit.
Right. I mean, it's all about consistency, right?
Right.
This is for sure the marathon, not the sprint. Could you guys tell? Yeah, go ahead.
I think our biggest fear for, because we asked our team not to door knock for a while, and in fact, we stopped all canvassing for a while during the very early stages of COVID. I think our biggest fear wasn't so much the pushback that we might get at the door, but the fear of social media and what people might say.
Yeah.
Like, I'd hate for someone to put out there, oh, look, Odd Couple team, who's been in our neighborhood for a long time, now they're spreading COVID one door at a time. We just did not want that to happen.
Yeah.
And we pulled back because we know the power of social media, especially in a small, close-knit neighborhood. So that's why we kind of pulled from it.
That was our same feeling, exactly the same as what Shane just said.
Got it. And that makes sense. I can totally understand that mode of action. Do you guys have anything that you feel, I guess, what do you think are the primary strategies that have brought you the most success out of that? Right. So are we talking, and this might be a difficult one to answer, but I know it's all of it together, but.
I always take my stuff. Oh, sorry.
Say again, sorry.
We focus on consistency. That's the only strategy there can be.
Right.
Whatever you choose to do, you've got to stay consistent and keep doing it. And once you start experiencing a few successes, don't stop because you experienced a few successes. I think that's one of the biggest struggles most real estate agents.
Right.
And farming, I honestly, Jen Maines years ago, and I talked about this, and she said, Jason, when you guys are starting a new farm, within the first year, plan on pulling 1, maybe 2 pieces of business out of it that first year. Anything else is gravy. So a farm is truly the consistency year over year over year. And you can certainly pull more than 1 or 2 pieces of business, depending how hard you work. But don't give up after 3 months.
Right.
If you're new to farming and you're a single agent or even an agent on a team and you want to generate a farm, I think the quickest and simplest way, honestly, is to either produce really campy flyers that you're going to take with you, or just bring your business card and literally just knock on the door and just ask the simple question and just introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Shane. I sell real estate in this community. I live just a few blocks over. I wanted to introduce myself. Are you thinking of buying or selling anytime in the next 6 months? No? Great. Do you know anyone on your block who's thinking about buying or selling in the next 6 months? No? Great. I will see you in about 3 or 4 months.
Yep. Simple as that, and you're on to the next one. I love that.
And people will say, oh, you don't have to come by in 3 months. I'm not moving. And that's fine. You can just say, great, no problem. And then you just see them again in 2 or 3 months. And you just and you just do it over and over and over and over. And I mean, I did that for, tell your story about the guy who was, so I door knocked Midway area over and over and over. And this guy, he was very curmudgeon-y, and he was sort of, you know, he pushed back about me knocking on his door, and he told me, stop coming to my door. They're taking me out in a pine box. I'm never moving. And, you know, I'd always just say, I'll see you in 3 to 4 months. And he was like, don't come back in 3 or 4 months. And he would shut the door. And I did that for like 11 years, 11 years, something like that. And one day I knocked on his door. Last time I knocked on his door, he answered it. And instead of being mean, he was like, I've been waiting for you. I was like, have? He was like, yeah, I know I always told you I was never going to move, but there's just been some changes in my life and family. And I knew that you would be back in a couple of months. So I've been waiting for you, and I need to list my house. I listed his house and sold it, and he moved to Arizona. But it just goes to show you that, you know, life plans do change, and your consistency can pay off.
Yes, that's exactly right. And things always change. It doesn't matter what someone tells you. That might be their perspective at the moment, but things can change in a nanosecond in life. So thanks for sharing that, because that's a big deal. I think a lot of times for new agents, they may try something for, you know, a week, 3 weeks, a month, not get the results they expect, say this doesn't work, and now they're done, right?
I also think that agents get really caught up on trying to figure out what they're going to take with them when they
Yes.
go. Stop. Just take your business card.
Just do it.
Or just take an open house invitation. You know, it shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes if you're going to do a flyer. You know, you can produce something in Command or whatever, you know, service that you use. You can just print out an MLS flyer, for that matter, with your name printed on the bottom of it. Or better yet, just bring your business card and go introduce yourself to people. But stop trying to produce something that's fabulous that's preventing you from getting out there in the first place.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Michelle, did you have something to add to that?
I agree with everything Shane said. I agree with the consistency. Farming is just like regular farming is. It's a long process. You plant the seeds and you keep watering it until all of a sudden you have something that grows. So it's a long-term thing. You can't give up in a short term. Right.
Yep. So don't get overly worried about what you're going to bring to the door. Right. I think for many agents, it's probably they're going to want to. I mean, it's always easier with a reason. Would you agree?
Right.
For example, if I got a food drive I want to do, that's easy to go to the door.
Yeah.
But it's really about the mindset, doesn't it? If you're just going to go with your business card, Shane, just go with the mindset as you're meeting someone new. As simple as that.
Right.
I don't think you have to have a reason other than just to tell people who you are and why you're there.
Right.
You know, the thing is I think that, again, people get caught up on, I need a reason, I need to produce something. And it can be a progressive thing. You can go out there just the first time, that you can go out there with a plan your first, 4 or 5 times with just your business card and an introduction. And then inevitably that will evolve to a listing. And then you can advertise that listing, and that's another reason to go out and door knock. Then you have an open house. There's another reason to have that door knock, and then you sell that house, and there's a reason to have that door knock. And all of a sudden, you have 2 listings. It starts to grow, and then you can afford to do more because you're actually increasing income out of your.
Shane, when you go out with your business card, do you leave your business card if no one answers the door?
If it's easy for me to leave it, I will, but I won't keep it on there because a lot of people push back on me taping to their door. But if I go out with my business card and it's easy for me just to slide it in there, in between the crack of the screen door, I would do that.
Okay. Gotcha.
I used to have business cards that on one side, it had my name and information, and on the other side it just said I just wanted to drop by to introduce myself. and that's all it said on the back of my card.
Yeah,
That
just
was
some special cards you made up. Yep,
box, you know.
got it, got it. Now, let's talk about the very beginning of a farm. So you've decided I want to do this. I want to farm this area. How did you decide? And I'm talking like the logistics, the technical parts. How did you decide what the borders are? How many homes are in the farm? Did you look at, are there agents in the farm that are doing a lot of business there? So I'll stay away from that. Or, you know what I mean? So how did you go about deciding where, beyond that you live near it, where your farm was going to be and how it's bordered?
Well, I'll start. How I did it is my particular where I live. It's a perfect rectangle from two main streets, and then it's kind of like this perfect rectangle. I looked at, and it's about 500 houses to start off with. I actually started it initially with 150 because that's what I could walk and do, and then I kept growing it, and so I would just continue to add to it. Then we added the next one over, and I went basically named them Farm 1, Farm 2, Farm 3, Farm 4, Farm 5, you know, and went basically started the whole entire city, but in little chunks.
Got it.
And so that's how I started.
Okay.
So when I started with 500, but all I did was door knock. So what I found was that when I would repeat, it was so often that it seemed like I was knocking on everybody's door maybe a little too frequently. So I then expanded to, I was a door knocking maniac back when I was first starting. So then I expanded to 1,000, and it was in a rectangular grid in the area I lived in. And I also wanted to make sure that there was turnover. So I did look that up. I mean, there was a lot of turnover. It was a first-time home buyer neighborhood. And so I related to these people in the neighborhood. They were my age and whatnot. So that was a big part of it. There was an agent that had an awful lot of stronghold in that neighborhood. Her name was Beth Richardson. She's a great agent. She's still out there doing business. But I didn't realize that she had a stronghold in the neighborhood. And so because I didn't realize that, because of lack of experience and knowledge of the area, it didn't affect me from continuing to farm that area. It didn't scare me away because I didn't know any better. And it's interesting because there was an evolution over time that switched from her to me in terms of the market share. And now I still am present there and she is not. So I wouldn't put too much weight on that, but just stay out of my farms because you don't want to go there. And then Michelle's farm.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what I'm gathering is consistency and a little bit of ignorance really propelled the whole operation forward, correct?
I mean,
Wow.
yeah, I just didn't let that affect me. Mostly not because I knew that she had a stronghold, but because I just didn't know.
Yeah, no, I love that.
It's just proof in the system that, you don't have to be fearful of someone who has market share if you're going to farm a certain area. Make sure there's some turnover though.
Right. And I agree with that because when I first started, I started with where I live, which is not the greatest of turnover. I mean, it was most of our houses when I started here were somewhat newer and the turnover wasn't good. So then once that I started farming different areas, I was obviously more astute to looking at, okay, how much of the turnover is happening? Where am I getting the most amount of calls? And then focusing those particular sections instead of as much time and effort into an area that's not going to turn over as quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with what you say there. And the other thing that you can count on if you're really consistent in your neighborhood, I mean, it is a little intimidating at first to go out there and door knock, but you do it for a year consistently and you hit those same doors maybe 4 or 5 times throughout a year. That second year, what ends up happening is when the people answer, they know who you are. They're like, oh, hi, Shane. Instead of introducing yourself at this point, they know who you are. And when you hit that point, it's kind of cool. So don't be fearful of getting out there and just doing it. It's uncomfortable for a while, but once you hit 10 doors, it just becomes habit.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. And then, kind of piggybacking off that, what length of time do you think it's going to take realistically to start really pulling business out of that farm? Like, I know, Jason, you mentioned, a couple transactions the first year. Any thoughts on that? Anything you could share with those agents that are considering this?
I think it's like anything else. You're going to have luck and timing that's going to just work in your favor. But in order to actually have people call you as a residual of farming, that's going to take a year to 18 months.
Yep, got it.
I would say
do it
a
in-
year to 2 years,
Yeah.
and for you to gain market share, 3 to 5.
Right.
I mean, you've got to be doing the door knocking. You've got to be doing events. You've got to be doing some philanthropic activities before you start hearing from every direction that, oh my gosh, you guys are just a household
Right.
realtor in our neighborhood. You're
Yeah, before
everywhere.
it reaches that critical mass, right?
Right.
You want someone to come home from work and see your piece hanging on their door and roll their eyes and throw it in the garbage. And then you want them to go to drop their kids off at soccer practice, see your logo on their back, just more brand recognition, then go to church on Sunday and see you on the bulletin too,
Yep.
Once you start just ingraining in all those little areas is when you're going to truly see market share.
But you will see successes along the way, just out of
Absolutely.
luck
Yes.
and timing. Because if you hit doors long enough, just like
Yeah.
if you call your sphere or cold call long enough, eventually someone is going to say, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to list my house." So you'll
Right.
have those successes along the way.
Right, as you're building it. But because what I'm taking away from this is just get out there and start the farm now and get busy, get going on it, because it is going to take some time. It's not going to be like you start knocking and I mean, you could come across someone in your first week and list them. But like you said, if you want to really build it as a strategy, you got to get moving on it. So,
I mean, if you do it,
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
if you do it
right.
if you do it for years, what ends up happening is what's happening to our team, and I'm sure what's happened with Michelle and other people who've done this. All of a sudden, you start to lead receive because people will just call you because they're like, "Well, we're listing our house, and we just figured you were the realtor in the neighborhood, so of
Right.
course we're calling you."
Yeah.
And so the shift starts to happen,
Mhm.
but you have to do it consistently.
Yes, and I'm assuming, even though that shift has occurred for you, Michelle, and Shane and Jason, you're still sticking to the fundamentals,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
You're still.
Absolutely.
It doesn't like you hit the success, and all of a sudden now you're like, well, we can kind of tone down this a little bit now. We're known here, right?
Things
Right.
differently. I mean, you get to a point where you can do things a little bit differently, and spend differently.
Yep.
You still need to be out there and present.
Yep, they have to see you. They have to see you and see your stuff. Okay, we're getting kind of tight on time, and I want to get some questions out here. So before we move into questions, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone looking to start the farm?
Just get started.
Yep, I love that. I love that.
Stop thinking about what you need to do in order to get started, and grab your business card and pack a brown bag lunch and go plop yourself in the neighborhood and hit a block. And I used to park in the middle of the neighborhood, and I would go and do around the block, and then I would stop, get in my car, drink some water, maybe have a snack, drive 2 blocks over, and do it again. And I would do that for 3-4 hours a day. I mean, I just did it constantly. But yeah, just get started.
Perfect. Thank you all very much for your time here today and your amazing volume of knowledge. It's extremely appreciated and helpful. Okay, I'd like to open up to any questions. Does anyone have a question for anybody on the panel today?
I do.
Yes,
just-
Tracy.
Can you just go through the basic steps of doing the food drive? You went to your local grocery store and asked them if they would donate bags. Is that correct? Is that what I heard you say?
So for us, I went to the local grocery store, asked them to donate just the plastic shopping bags. We did a half sheet of paper with a note saying we were the local realtor. We got a list of items that our food shelves were looking for. Told them whether it was a can of green beans or an entire bag of groceries, everything's appreciated. And we'll be back. We would drop the bags on Tuesday, and then we would pick up that next Friday.
We're actually dropping 1,000 bags today that we're gonna go pick up. Whoever
Next
donated
Friday.
on Friday.
Yeah. So we've been doing it so Monday we prep the bags to be delivered. Tuesday we deliver the bags. Friday we pick up the bags, and the food shelf comes and picks up the food.
Awesome.
It's super easy, you guys. I think that was, our biggest aha and biggest win this year, at least in my opinion.
Right.
Other questions?
Anyone else? It's wide open, people.
I have a quick question. In your folks' experience, is there a time of day of the week that is best for door knocking, or does it depend on the neighborhood?
So
Great question.
the best time for me was when I was available and had it in my calendar. I didn't really put a lot of weight on thinking when people would be home. I mean, of course, will more people be home between the hours of 5 and 7? Sure. Did I want a door knock between 5 and 7? Absolutely not. And I was shocked how many people were home at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Well, nowadays too, I mean, obviously going forward, there's going to be more people that are going to be home, in a much at any point in time. So I think that it's not necessarily as important as far as that timing is concerned.
So I think that was a great question. And I also think it's one of those things that I was alluding to earlier that paralyzes people from getting out there. Stop thinking about it, grab your card, and if you have time, go out and do it now.
Yeah.
Michelle, I have a question for you. I know you said that you backed off of door knocking here through COVID. When do you intend to have you and your team start that back up again?
We were actually discussing it on our morning call this morning, and I know that some of the team members are really getting anxious to do it, and I do think we're going to start that in the next couple of weeks. We're going to start doing a little bit, kind of a slow process of kind of going. If nothing else, we're going to door knock for maybe a food drive again, because the food drive hits the same heart chords, as what people are. So it's not the concern as much of we're just out here talking about real estate in comparison to we're doing something for the community.
Do you door knock in the winter?
We do.
Yeah,
We do.
so do we.
Yeah.
February, August.
Doesn't matter. It's below zero. We still do it.
Good for you. You get some sympathy there too, because I've
Yeah,
knocked
we do.
I've knocked when it was cold out and been invited into many homes by doing that.
For
So
sure.
good. Any other questions before we let these fine folks get back to their day? Okay. Well, Michelle, Shane, and Jason, thank you all for being here today and sharing your knowledge. It is greatly appreciated. And I know that I've taken away some tips, and I'm sure that most of the other folks here today have as well. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks
care.
for facilitating, Matt.
Hey, my pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a great day.